You're watching the Original Music Podcast.
And what part of England are you in currently?
I'm not. Well, I'm actually not. I'm in the Canary Islands.
Oh, beautiful.
So I have a house in England, but we rent that out now. We've been living in Lanzarote for 10 years. So in fact, that's why I say our current temperature is about 25 degrees Celsius. So it's about 75, 78, something like that. So we live with that all year. Yeah. So it's a nice climate to be in. But we haven't had rain since March. We haven't had any proper rain since March. So
yeah,
it's a very different thing to living in England. It's about 4 hours away from England.
And the Canary Islands, is that a British?
No, it's Spanish, but they're off the coast of Africa.
Oh, wow.
So our nearest landmass is Africa. We're about 2 hours to Spain.
Gotcha.
So it's quite a way. We're right down in the Atlantic.
Gotcha.
So so it's a nice place to live. So
I would imagine it would be a lot better than England right now, that's for sure.
England's, well, that's why I moved.
Yeah. Well, let's get this thing started here. I'll get it kicked off, and then we'll get going. All right, here we go. Episode 50. I'm honored to have Neil Carter, who has been the keyboard player, guitar player in several classic bands, UFO, Gary Moore, and Wild Horses. How are you doing today, Neil?
I'm very good. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, I'm really, really good. Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming on. I was saying off air that my buddy and I, every time we get together, we kind of joke and say, "Hey, let's watch the Red Jumpsuit Gary Moore concert." And he was just here a week or so ago, and I said to him, I was like, "Mate, I should try to get Neil Carter on the podcast." And yeah, so I found you on Facebook, sent you a direct message, and you immediately said, "Yeah, I'd love to do it." So
I enjoy doing this.
Yeah, it's fun. Good. It's fun to talk music, but it's also fun to talk about the history that. How long have you been in the music game at this point?
Ooh, right. Okay. My first professional thing was in 1970, but I was in a band before that. So I suppose actually really coming up to 48 years, something like that, maybe a bit less than that, 47 years. Wow. But professionally since 1970, I would say that was when I was professional. But I'm a professional before that.
Sure. And what got you started as wanting to be a musician? And was keyboards your first instrument, or what got you got the ball rolling?
Well, in England, when I was growing up, everyone always had a piano. Everyone always had a piano in the house. So I did used to tinker around on the piano a bit, but actually I got into it by being a clarinet player. Oh, wow. That's actually how I began. And I learned the clarinet when I was 11, and I still play it now. So it's one of it's the enduring thing that has gone through my life, and I'm still playing it in concerts now. Wow. So I started on a classical career, right. And then mistakenly someone gave me a guitar, and that's where it all went wrong. So
yeah, that's where
I got bitten by that's right. So I was going on that path and saying, "Whoa!" Straight up.
Yeah. Now you are I think I was reading that you are doing like swing jazz type music now.
Yeah, I do. What I do, now it's got very jumbled up because I left the rock. Well, we could do this more, but I left the rock music world about 1989.
Right.
Or so it left me really, and not knowing what to do. I was 30. I began teaching.
Right.
And so I started, and I sort of had no desire. People can never believe this, but I had no desire to go back into it.
Right.
Once you sort of hit your goal.
Yeah.
For me, it was like a mountain. I climbed it and I got to the top. I just thought, oh, I don't want to do it anymore. So I started teaching, and then through the course of that, I taught jazz and classical, and then I had jazz. So currently, what I do with this UFO sort of is I do playing in a wind. That was just something to do. I mean, I'd be very lazy otherwise. I would hardly play at all. I said that we can talk about what else I've been doing recently, but I play swing jazz. I like everything really. I like this music.
Yeah.
I never count anything.
I love that style of music. It's not what I am able to play, but I have a classic car, a 1947 car, and so whenever I'm working on that car, I like to put on the old music, and
yeah. I really like. I mean, I'm very drawn. I'm not a great jazz sort of enthusiast of more outrageous jazz. And I've had kids that I've gone on to do it, and to be honest, it's not something that I can really get into myself. But I like big band. That's what I like. I like big band jazz. I like singers, obviously, so I like people like Gerald, so it's the more musical side of it for me, not the more experimental Miles Davis. I prefer Glenn Miller, Benny Goodman, all that sort of thing. That's what really I try to get my kids to play, all that sort of thing, all those big band arrangements. So.
Sure. So obviously, when you were in the rock game, you knew theory and could score out parts and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we never, apart from we're going to talk about mechanics, but apart from mechanics, the only thing I ever did that involved scoring out was doing the string parts for one of the songs on the first song. And in fact, I was woefully inept. I'd sort of lost it all in the years between learning at school and then going to do the stuff with UFO. I sort of lost the whole theory behind it, really. So it was only after that when I picked it all up again and started doing it. So I could probably do it a little bit now. It was almost like I left that side of it.
Sure.
I left it from the time I joined sort of onwards. Until I went back to doing it after the time of Gary Moore.
Yeah. Now, when you were in, we're kind of skipping around a little bit, but when you were with Gary, were there times he wasn't necessarily a theory guy. He didn't really write out his music. It just played.
No, he didn't. I mean, he did. He obviously would come up. I mean, I understand after I went and he did still got the blues album. Like the arrangements with Don Airey, and Don Airey's probably quite capable of doing it. So I think it became a little bit more structured in that way because you've got the strings and brass and all that arrangements, But no, Gary wouldn't do that, but he was very meticulous about how the arrangements would be. And that's why we got into drum machine.
Yeah. It's so interesting to kind of look at a person's career from the beginning to I mean, you guys were playing big arenas and all that, and you said at 30 years old you kind of turned and walked a different direction.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was forced on me, got to be honest, because Gary went off and he did his blues album, and there was a part of me that thought, we'll come back. But I sort of played myself out a little bit. And in fact, I didn't, the After the War tour we did, I really didn't enjoy it too much. And my role was becoming more playing the keyboard,
right,
playing guitar. And I much prefer playing guitar. It gives me more freedom, gives me more show off.
Sure.
On the stage and do all that. So things I actually enjoy. All about performing, that part of it. So I felt a little bit restricted. So I think it was probably the right time, throughout the time thing. But I hadn't really got a lot more interest in doing anything else at that point.
Well, I did read up in the band Wild Horses. You did all the lead guitar on that.
No. Brian Robertson was the lead guitar player. Essentially, me doing some tunes. And I did a few solos. And in fact, there were probably about 5 songs that I played. Brian would want to play bass on something. So
Yeah.
I don't know why he wanted to play bass, but he played bass. So Jimmy Bain would play the rhythm guitar, and I would play the lead guitar. So when I joined UFO, I playing essentially the guitar.
Gotcha.
For a long time. And in fact, I haven't played lead guitar on an album since 1979.
Oh, wow.
Until now.
Until now.
Which we'll get on.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll get on to.
Yeah. So one of the things, and we'll listen to a track here off of the Wild Horses album, but one of the things that I noticed on that record was the producer, Trevor Rabin.
Yeah, absolutely. Trevor he was a sort of protege of EMI's, I think, at the time, and he was, such a nice man. And they weren't easy to work because he wanted to start at night, and live after midnight. There was that sort of band, So it was for him. I think it was a little bit trying, but so it's good. I think one of the tracks, Reservations.
Yes.
Yeah, Reservation actually has me playing lead guitar.
Okay.
As well as Brian. So Brian plays one side. But no, Trevor Rabin did a very musical approach to it. Brian Robinson, given him his due, very musical man, very, very talented guy.
Now, when you were recording that record, did were you guys using 2-inch tape or?
2-inch tape, yeah. It was 2-inch tape, yeah.
So you had to take a good take from start to finish. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the world has moved on.
Yeah.
It was all 24 tracks. And in fact, up until Gary Moore's last album, I remember rightly, it was, maybe just a little bit of Wild Frontier. Then he went to 50, I think. He went into a different.
You dropped out on the tail end of that. So the last part of the Gary Moore records in '89, some of that was going over to Pro Tools.
No, not then. I think it was still 52 track. I've got to be honest. That rings a bell with me. It was thinner. I think it was thinner tape, but I can't.
Yeah.
Really very, very long ago. But we did use state-of-the-art studios. There must be something around and fairly new at the time of 1988. That was when we started.
Gotcha. Well, let's take a listen to Wild Horses Reservations. Anything you want to talk about the meaning of this song?
It's got I think the Reservations got like references to American Indian culture, that sort of thing. But again, you have to take all these lyrics in the night, and were written in 1977. So it's a long, long time ago. But I can't remember it in specific. It's a good riff. It's very good.
Yeah. All right. Well, here we go. Let's take a listen. Reservations. Wild Horses.
I can remember it.
Killed the buffalo by the thousands, till the white man killed them all. Reservations are for ghettos, America you surely know. Graveyard warriors are still fighting.
There it is. There it is.
Goodness me.
Yeah. Reservations. So that was 1980.
Yeah.
And so
actually, no. Actually, the original, I think the album came out. It took a long time. It was we couldn't get a deal. Well, it took a long time to get a deal. And I'm just trying to remember how it went.
Yeah, I saw you jamming over there.
Yeah, I know. Funny thing is, actually, Clive Edwards, the drummer, got some offers for us to go and play some festivals for Wild Horses next year. I don't think actually probably that will happen because poor Jimmy is now no longer with us.
Right.
And Brian isn't really good either. So, so it probably won't happen. But I'm just trying to remember if I could actually remember what the hell the thing went. It was, we took a long time to get a deal. So, in fact, the whole thing started in 1978.
Oh, wow.
But we didn't actually release the album until I left. A bit unfortunate, really, but it was about, I think, sometime during the early part of 1980.
Yeah.
But there's some great stuff. There's a bit on YouTube of Wild Horses with Bill Lynott on a TV show in England, which is actually worth watching. It's pretty good. It's actually us playing Reservations.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think, in that late 79, 80 era, you guys were battling up against disco, I would imagine.
And punk.
And punk, yeah. Punk was coming on. You've been around the block now, and you've seen musical styles come, musical styles go. It seems like rock kind of sticks in there.
It's there. I found going out on tour with UFO again.
Yeah.
Well, I went back out on tour with them in 2019. I mean, it's very strange how all that stuff is quite sad. See all these people that you haven't seen for 90 years. Like people like Priest, Alice Cooper. All these people going out and just slaying it, and people just love it.
Yeah.
And the same for us. I watched some video back of us playing some festival summer 19 and 20, and it's just outrageous. And the warmth that comes from the audience is just fantastic.
Yeah, and you start seeing younger people that are getting turned on to your music. That like, wow, how do you know?
Yeah, no. The funny thing is, I think definitely one thing that's helped, there's something that when we play Doctor Doctor, this Iron Maiden play it before their shows. It's become quite beastly.
Yeah.
So every time Iron Maiden play, they play Doctor Doctor before they go on, and you now get people. They sing the introduction, the whole 15,000 people singing the melody of the introduction. It's quite incredible. It's amazing that particularly that song.
Sure.
Really done amazing things for us.
Yeah.
And I wish I'd been in it when it was recorded, but no, it wasn't much.
Sometimes it takes time for these things to
it does. Filter through
to develop up. And that is kind of an amazing thing. A band like Judas Priest that are still doing it. Iron Maiden still doing it.
Yeah. It's incredible. And I used to get probably about 20 years ago, I used to think, why they're bothering. But actually now I've seen it for myself and gone back to that. I can see it's just fantastic because it's like you're your own tribute band.
Right.
And, you get to play to people that have just grown up. And I mean, Phil Mogg always jokes that the audience are his people because they're all roughly about the same age or a little bit younger. And it's just incredible to see. It really is incredible to see it. How much people have to fight the warmth comes from people.
Yeah.
It's lovely. It's really lovely.
Yeah, you mentioned tribute bands, here in Atlanta. I'm an original artist. I like to write and record and create my own thing. And it's getting more difficult and more difficult just to even get a gig because everybody's a tribute band. And it's I don't know.
That's a shame. I mean, it's a shame to sort of that for those things to new stuff, new talent or whatever. I mean, there's always room for a balance in everything.
Yeah. I mean, you you would think that some people would be trying to look out for something they hadn't heard before.
Yeah, difficult now. I think, to be honest, it's difficult. I listen to some modern, and I just think, we've been here before. It's very difficult coming up with something new. And I know really that from current experience of trying to write songs or trying to write, it's very hard not to do the things that you've done before. And you've got to try and make things sound new and fresh. It is very difficult. It's a bit like, we're sort of going back into classical music, the Handels and get very deep here, but the Mozart and all that, the whole period of stuff, Mozart time into the classical period, a lot of it sounds the same. A lot of Mozart stuff, if you actually didn't know it,
right.
it tends to sound formulaic. It's not, but it tends to sound quite formulaic, I think. So it just becomes very difficult to come up with new ideas and new things.
Yeah.
Once in a while, something comes along, like Queen or Led Zeppelin or whatever, and it completely revives everything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what we're all craving when a new artist comes out, and it blows my mind. I think the internet has been kind of the medicine for what you were just talking about older music being revived. People are getting turned on to some of the older material, but also the new. I mean, I can go on the internet and see a guitar player that's 17 years old that's doing something on the instrument that I'm going, wow,
It's best not to look.
Yeah,
I find now that it's just best not to look because there's guys doing stuff and just. And I think the other thing being people study this genre a lot more. Whereas when I started the guitar and noodled about, there was nothing to look at. There was no, and so my personal go-tos are people like Brian May and Mick Ronson. Maybe a bit of Richard Valentine, a little bit of Richard. So nowadays, then there's the other lot now have come along. So their go-tos are Eddie Van Halen and Joe Satriani. All these people. So everything now it's always it's almost like an order of, and everything gets more grown up and gets more complicated.
Sure.
I don't want to look at guitar. It would depress me. I can't do that. It's just something that's just impossible. So I just stick with what I know.
I like to call it, and when I get kind of depressed and when I see something like that, I'm like, you know what? Just stay in your lane. Do what you do as good as you can do it, and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, absolutely. Same with classical. So I mean, there's so many nowadays. When I was a kid, if you had grade 8, which is like the top level, having a distinction, it was a complete shoo-in into going into music college. But now that's not even remotely sort of on down the ladder. You've got to be so incredibly good, and there's no jobs. There's no jobs. All these brilliant people, and there's no jobs because how brilliant do you have to be? So it's really difficult. It's made much harder. I feel like it's much harder for all time.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah, it's very easy for humans to make things more complicated than they need to be. Yeah, absolutely. I can't, just look at the words. And then I think, well, okay, but you can't do it. So don't worry, don't try and compete. Yeah.
Like you said, stay in your own lane. That's all you can.
Yeah, stay in your lane, do what you do it the best you can. So UFO, now, is this your second stint with them? Third stint?
Second.
Okay.
Yeah, second. After a period of 30 years, I sort of stopped with them in '83, and I went back in 2019.
Nice.
So I mean, UFO. At the moment it's very difficult. Bill wasn't very well, and we sort of stopped. But no one's actually saying what if we'll ever do anything again. So, but in the meantime, Bill has just done it. So, that's something that it's been busy. So, I can't see UFO playing it. I'd be very surprised. I think he doesn't really want to. I can't speak for him.
Yeah.
On the injured story. I can't play him.
Well, I mean, they've been around for a long time, so there's got to be
Yeah.
an incredible discography of material.
Oh, yes, 26, 27 albums, something like, I'm sure, something like that. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you? I mean, I think that you, and I think we can talk about that. You guys are working on a new record.
Yeah, it's not UFO. It's Phil Mogg has wanted to do his own project,
Oh, okay.
and so it's called Mogg's Motown,
Oh, nice.
and it's been gestating for nearly 4 years, I might say, because we've had the pandemic. You know, we've not been able to get really. And what's been the weirdest thing? I've written some things, and he's been working with a guy called Tony Newton, who plays with KK Downing's personal Judas Priest. And Tony's a bass player, but he's also a very, very good engineer, very good producer, plays guitar, plays keyboards and that. So Phil is in England, and Tony's in England. So I've been contributing remotely. So I've been doing all my bits in my studio here,
Right.
and then just send them over. So, but the bizarre thing is, I mean, it's finished, it's mastered, it's now being looking for a distribution.
Gotcha.
But it sounds like a band. It's incredible, and I've never met three of the people.
Oh, that's
But it's the joy of technology,
yeah.
and it's really come together incredibly well. Phil sounds fantastic, and the songs are just really good, and it's very diverse. It's got a little bit more. We've all grown up a bit, so it's all weird. So I'm very pleased with it.
That's awesome.
He's 76. April, so it's a nice thing to do.
Yeah, it's inspiring to me to see you guys still being inspired and want to still create.
Yeah.
Now you said that you have a studio there, so I'm assuming that you have like a Pro Tools rig or some sort of
something similar. Yeah, I use
Okay.
yeah, so it's quite incredible because it's a new. I actually had to buy all this stuff. I had nothing. So when Phil originally said, "Do you want to got these ideas?" Whatever, I actually had to go out and buy everything. I didn't have anything to do. I had a guitar. I had to go and buy when I went back to UFO. I had no guitars. I had nothing.
Wow.
When Phil rang me to say would I go to UFO to help them out to do the film, I had nothing. I had to go and buy a guitar from a bar player down in one of the resorts where I live. And so really I've had to learn. Vinnie Moore helped me a little bit because I didn't even know what to do. I had no idea how to work. So I had to learn on the job. So I've got a small set here and it works fine, and I can send good enough quality back to you.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
You can email parts back and forth.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's so easy.
Which software are you using? I missed that.
Cubase.
Oh, okay,
Cubase. Yeah. So because it was the first thing I saw, and I thought I'll do it.
Sure.
I did have. I think at the time of Gary Moore, my return to Gary Moore about 2011, I did have something Apple-y, and I think it might have been Pro Tools, or something very Logic or something.
Yeah.
It was fairly basic.
Yeah.
But I never found out how to use it. But I never worked out how to use it. Whereas this time I've had more time because of the pandemic. I said, give it to it.
Yeah. It's interesting that we have to keep teaching ourselves the new technologies that come along just to be able to be relevant with our friends.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, like I said, I had no plans to do anything.
Right.
So for me, it was very much I suppose I've got to go and get something, but the funniest thing was not having a guitar. I got rid of my guitar to the Canary Islands.
Yeah.
So I didn't have anything. I had to buy this Nighthawk.
Yeah.
Nighthawk.
Gibson Nighthawk.
And worked. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was my beginning guitar. Then a guy in Connecticut made me a guitar, very much in the style of Gary's Peter Green guitar. And then I've got to do some.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. I didn't even think about this question, but did you ever have a chance to play Greenie?
Do you know what was very strange? He said, Gary used to have almost like a ring of steel around him, right? And he never let anyone touch it.
Yeah.
All the time I was with him, I don't believe I ever touched that guitar. I was next to it, but I never actually touched it. So fast forward to 2019, and Kirk Hammett
Yep.
came to play with UFO, jamming this. And I suddenly thought, you know, and he just handed me the guitar. And I thought, this bloody thing. And it was so light compared with the normal Les Paul. That was what I couldn't get over.
Oh, wow.
It was so light. I'm not into guitars.
Right.
I mean, I'm not a guitar freak.
Right.
But I just remember thinking, God. And Kirk bought it to the gig in a soft guitar.
A gig bag. Yeah, a gig bag.
And I thought, well, Gary would have had that guitar in an armoured truck.
Right.
And it was quite funny seeing the two different approaches.
Yeah.
You know, like I was with Gary when it got broken. I was in the car with Gary when the neck got broken.
Yeah.
So I remembered how he was with that guitar and how sacred it was.
Yeah.
And so it's quite funny, but you know, it's gone to another owner. You know, so it's fine. People get very strange about that. Like some people think you should.
Yeah.
Hold it. I mean, how can you? I think it's fine. He made a sound.
Well, one of the questions that I wanted to ask was how, and I think I know how, but how in the hell did Gary get such long sustain out of, especially on like Parisian Walkway, just cranked amps?
Yeah, crank and some, I think maybe sustain pedal or something or whatever. I mean, he did. I'm terrible. I'm not a freak like this. I mean, I was sort of standing next to him for 7 years, but I never really looked at him.
Sure.
So I didn't really look at the pedals, or I was aware that he used to have to, you know, timings of the delays and all that sort of thing. But I never really looked at it. And there were times where they didn't quite work acoustically, and it was like, you know, and it died on its feet. Very rarely, though. But there were times when he had to move around stage to find that point, that tipping point where it was sustained. Yeah,
the sweet spot.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But I've got to be honest, I never really noticed how it was achieved.
You guys were not afraid to play at volume back then, were you?
And in fact, the worst aspect of it, going back to it in 2010, and Gary plays for 100.
Yep.
And it was deafening. It was deafening.
Yeah.
And I'm just glad that I was over the other side of the stage, because when we were playing somewhere like the Kremlin Palace, that was one of the last gigs we did. In fact, one gig we did. And all the dignitaries were sat on the front in the Kremlin Palace, and they were all getting battered by Gary's guitar, you know, and it's just kind of like this, you know.
Yeah.
And he wore ear protection. They all wore ear protection.
Right.
Which is more than I ever did, because I wasn't used to it. I've never played with it.
Yeah. What about now? Are you like I'm wearing in-ear monitors right now? I mean, we have to. It's so not smart to not use these anymore.
I know. I'm afraid the ship sailed. I got so and I can't now do it. I can't play with anything in my ears.
Oh, really?
And Phil Mogg is the same. Phil can't do it. I think and Vinnie Moore plays with it, and Rob DeLuca, the bass player, plays it, because Andy does now. He never did. I just can't play with it. I can't function on stage with that.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't play very well. That's the thing. The on-stage volume of UFO this time around was very, very quiet.
Right.
Now,
so, are you using, modelers or profilers, any of the new technology, or are you still using tube amps?
No, just basically tube. I mean, my tech guy I had played the dirty on me, because I always played through a 50-watt Marshall, and that's what I'm used to.
Right.
And I suddenly realised for most of the tour I'd been playing through something completely different, because we never did sound checks.
Sure.
So I suddenly said, I was fiddling around with the Marshall, and he said, "Why are you doing that? We're using this." And I thought, so it shows again. It's like, if you don't know, you know. If you don't ask, you don't.
Yeah. Going back to the recording thing with Cubase, are you still doing some keyboards? Yeah. I did quite a lot of on the new Mox Motel thing. Yeah. I play a lot of sort of native sounds. I play more. There's more strings. There's strings sounding like strings rather than a string. There's a few padding, but and a little bit of piano. But by and large, not to overdo it with key. I'm afraid that's something that I
I would rather stay clear of now. And like I said, I'm not at heart. I'm not keyboard.
Yeah.
So I've done some guitar, I've done some lead guitar, a lot of singing, a lot of vocals.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, it's very diverse. You've got, it's very interesting.
The question that I was getting to on the recording, using a MIDI controller and having VST sounds, is that not the most amazing thing ever?
Perfect. You don't have to worry about it. It's brilliant. In fact, I've only generally used what Cubase comes with. So, it's brilliant. I mean, when you're basically just you want something to sound authentically like an instrument, and they are there, and they sound like an instrument. You can actually then make them sound how you want.
Sure.
You can, I think, how you voice it, how you what type of sound. If you're working with the sound, make it. And because I've worked with. In the intervening period, I've worked with orchestra, played in orchestra. I've conducted string bands, I've done jazz. So, I'm used now to how I think it should sound, if it sounds like an orchestra.
Yeah.
So, thank God for that, because I don't want to, only got one keyboard, a triton. It's a chord triton, which is what Paul Raymond had, that I took over from. So I used Paul Raymond's keyboards when I went back. So I had to get something spare because they were very old. I had to buy another one to spare.
Yeah. And back then you needed, two keyboards here, two keyboards here.
Yeah. I mean, on stage, I still, for UFO in this final night, I just kept to what Paul Raymond did because he basically used organ and, like I said, this crime thing. And in Men Through Love to Love, I had to keep changing sounds as I went, which was anathema. I always had with Gary. I had about 6, and a sampler. So I wasn't having to think about it. I could just go from one to the other, which is fantastic.
Right.
This was a little bit a white knuckle ride, but I had to just go with it and get it.
Yeah.
But you don't press the right way. You could end up with something completely different.
Yeah. And we're talking about in 84, 83, 84, 85, 6, even 87. We're talking about those were using like floppy, floppy
disk drives. Yeah,
3.5 inch floppy disk.
Yeah. I had what they call an Emax, which is a slightly down X2, which is a downbeat version of the emulator. And I used to have to use the opposite disc. And for Over the Hills and Far Away, when we played it live, I had to slot in. I had to load a disc in, and then there's an a cappella vocal section in the middle of it, and I had to actually, while Gary was playing the solo, I had to reload sloppy disc where I could come in with the Over the Hills and Far Away chorus, using the keyboard, and it was like I'm playing the solo with underneath it, and I'm looking at this thing and I'm going, please load. And I did thousands of gigs, with that. It's just how you did it. It was still quite an early technology.
Yeah.
And I think I used samplers from when they first became available. We used a lot of sounds that were Irish native sounds, And I used to just sample them on multi-track and then use the exact same sounds on.
So you guys were sampling way back in the day.
But yeah. I had a thing. First one that came out, it was a proper keyboard, and took little floppy.
Yeah.
And that was one of the first Alexis thing, and it was the first time I'd used a proper piano sound and a proper label to actually. It's incredible how the technology develops.
Yeah, it develops very quickly. Some for the good, some for the bad.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
You just have to take the good with the bad. But Over the Hills and Far Away. So what you're telling me is on the vocal breakdown, he's doing the thing, and then you come into that just manic melody, that Irish manic melody, and that sound is the one that you were loading?
No, I was loading the singers. I was actually loading the singers. So again, it's really thinking about it, but there's a big a cappella vocal section with it's myself, Gary, and there's a woman called Judy Zook, who's a very, very British, but very, very good songwriter. And yeah, it's the actual vocal section. So I'd be waiting during the solo, and it was entirely timed.
Yeah.
But yeah, so crazy. But I still use the same thing when I went back out with Gary in 2010. I used the same thing. I had all the samples. I still had them. So I used the exactly same thing for that. So I didn't have to worry about it. The keyboard had a lot more memory.
Yeah. Well, let's listen to some UFO. Let's listen to The Writer off of the Mechanics album. And if I saw the story right, the tagline was "Mechanics. It will tighten your nuts."
Definitely, yes. That was a really classy way of selling the album. I think very classy.
Yeah,
sort of summed up the time, isn't it? Really, yeah.
I like that. And then there was a story that Asia, which was a super group that was put. I don't know if it was put together or whatever, but they were upstairs and you guys were downstairs. Do you remember that story?
Well, no, I don't, but there could have been. I don't know, not at all. I mean, we recorded that album in so many different locations, one of them being Queen Studio.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I don't know. I think I remember being in with Gary with Trevor Rabin.
Yeah.
Poor Asia.
Yeah, check out your Wikipedia. They said that Asia was in the recording studio upstairs, and that you guys would go upstairs and watch those guys, and then go back down and be inspired to do your record.
Oh, really? Yeah. Right. Okay. Not something I remember. Maybe when I was out in the country.
Yeah. So when you guys were doing these recording sessions, this was kind of the Wild West days back then. Were you guys having some pints and then going to the studio, or was it?
Yes, pints, vodka, some of them. Yeah, and I think it was pretty wild. Yeah, it was pretty wild. The band were well known. Their ways.
Yeah.
It's very different now, but it was pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think the bands had to go through that, and some bands still to go through that. But in order to have the longevity that we were talking about with Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, those types of habits had to go away. They had to go away at some point.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, people. I used to say that really, you have to be on it when you're playing, because if you're not, people are paying good money to see you. Yeah. So whereas I remember some comment, it's typical place, but some guy saying, "Yeah, but it was rock and roll." I said, "Yeah, but you'd probably want your money back if you were falling over. The days of falling over, and paid for it. People want value from it. They want a show. They want a band, that are on tune, that playing the same songs at the same time. Not necessarily falling over. UFO used to put on a good show. A few tough ones, but generally it was always.
Yeah, there's plenty of time. There's plenty of time. There's plenty of time after the show to party and have a good
absolutely.
time.
And I have to say that since I went back, there wasn't one deaf show. It was the most pleasurable experience, me playing with them, because every night was fun.
Right.
It was really good. Every night was fun.
Right. It
wasn't always the case back then, but now for this last bit.
Yeah. Well, let's check out The Writer. Is there anything you want to tell us about this song?
No. I mean, very briefly, it was I was sort of a bit inspired by Chiquita by Aerosmith, and I loved the sound of the saxophone that they used. They used horn. I didn't really understand the saxophone at that point, so I didn't really realise that what they were using was baritone and maybe tenors, and I played on an alto. And so therefore my intention in certain parts of that was to make it sound more Aerosmithy than to make it sound how it, in a way it came out. But I still like it as a song.
Okay. And this was somewhere around the 82 era?
Yeah, 81, 82, yeah.
Okay. All right, here we go. The Writer, UFO. Oh yeah, the old California fade at the end.
California.
Yeah.
This is true.
Yeah, that has a really gritty. I mean, if you were kind of inspired by Aerosmith, it had that feel for sure.
Yeah. We used to play Chiquita Me Went On. So I'd sort of been listening to it night after night after night after night. I love Aerosmith. I mean, they're one of my favourite bands, an enduring band. So yeah, I don't know whether you've read, but it was always a bit of sort of tension with Pete Way. Pete didn't like the saxophone, and it was a shame really, because I think, like I said, I didn't understand the instrument now, and so what my intentions didn't quite come out as.
I don't know, man. I think, all right. So what I heard on that track was, a great hooky riff, rhythm guitar, just grinding rock and roll. Goes into the first solo, which was a synth, a Moog, or some sort of sound.
Not sure why I did that. Yeah, okay.
And then the guitar. Then there was guitar solo 1. And then I believe the sax came in, and I thought it was. I mean,
no, it's. I think it's. I mean, I don't dislike it at all. I like the song. It's just I think what I was saying, that Pete Way.
Yeah,
it was cited one of his reasons why he didn't play the band, because of use of having keyboards.
Yeah,
I think it's just experimenting.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, it was never personal. It was just something that he didn't like, So
right.
I can agree now, but I can see why he wasn't.
Well, how many guys were in UFO at that point?
We were still a 5-piece.
Okay.
Yeah, we were 5-piece. So UFO from about the time of Lights or Obsession. So I don't know, but when they went into a 5-piece was like around the time of. I can't remember, but anyway, so the big. So all the time I've been.
Yeah. So the point I'm getting at there is, in one band I've got a 3-piece. One band I have a 4-piece. It doesn't matter if you got a duo. If you've got 2 people in a recording studio, there's going to be a little bit of this, and that's where the magic really happens. Is collaboration. This guy's got an idea. Let's put it down and try it, and diplomatically say yay or nay.
Yeah, that's actually what has been quite funny about doing this thing for Phil, because I've actually had to be my own judge and jury. Yeah. So I've been doing I had to sort of complete things and then send them to them, and then see whether they like them. Because you're not working with people. I've never done anything like this before. Right. So you've always been together with them. So it's sort of being your own judge and jury. It's very strange, but I mean, I think 99.999 times it's good. So,
I do the same thing in my studio over here. So in my room here, I've got a rehearsal space. I've got a Hammond over there, and drums, bass, and got everything I could ever dream. And then in my recording area over here, I do the same thing where I'll send ideas, guitar tracks and parts and solos and whatever to the guys. And I'm like, listen, guys, I need a chaperone. I need. I have nobody over here telling me that's enough. Or
of course, I understand. Yeah. Like you say, it's like being your own judge and jury. I think really, I suppose at my age, I should know. I kept thinking to myself, just do what, and that's if it's not right, then they'll tell you. But I've actually really enjoyed it. Yeah. Really enjoyed it. Yeah.
I find it a little bit lonely because part of the fun for me is when you're in the studio with your guys and you play something, you think it's awesome, and they're like, dude, that sucked. Some of the ribbing in the locker room is kind of where the fun is,
No, of course, absolutely.
So let's move on to now we've gone through Wild Horses, we've gone through UFO, and now we're in the Gary Moore era. And I am a proud owner of a VHS
Emerald Isles,
VHS copy of Gary Moore Emerald Isles, and this was such an inspiration to me as a guitar player growing up, and mostly because it just blew my mind how good he was and how fast he was. But the other thing that was really inspiring to me, it was the rhythm guitar playing, both by you and Gary. the rhythm crunch, junky, guitar parts. Well, as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, how do they do that? Marshall. I need a
Oh,
Marshall.
actually, in my case, that's really good. No, I give
Yeah.
it's one of my. It's actually, I think, really, that's about my level of the guitar. It's just really like the attitude and all that. That's what I enjoy doing. I mean,
Yeah.
I do. We had plenty of riffs. Really sort of solid riffs. I think Gary liked. Gary never really worked with too many other guitar players. I mean, in Thin Lizzy, he did. But I think I was probably the only person long term that he had as another guitar player. He would never let me play anything lead.
Yeah.
He would never let me do any harmonies, really. He was always really just wanted what he wanted, to support his guitar.
Yeah. Well, he wrote those big, long, beautiful melodies and some of the fast stuff. We already talked about that line in Over the Hills and Far Away.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you were doubling a lot of that on the keyboard. I mean, just ripping it up with him.
Yeah, we did. I'm not at heart. I'm not a soloist myself, so I quite like having the role of the support. So I like playing Hammond. I mean, I enjoy playing the organ parts.
Yeah.
And when I first started with Gary, we had a lot more Hammond.
Yeah.
There were things that Don Airy had done the parts for, or whoever. But bit by bit, the Hammond tended to go into the background, and it was more Paddy.
That was kind of the sign of the times with the sounds, though.
Yeah.
Thank God, the Hammond has been a resurgence in rock and roll music.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, perfect.
But
we did. Actually, it was nice playing the UFO stuff again because again, that was Hammond.
Yeah.
A lot of it, a lot of the rock stuff, Hammond.
Yeah.
Well, I had a cut down Hammond organ for years with UFO and then massive Leslie.
Yeah.
Set up speakers.
Yeah, I've got the C3 and a 122, I think. Yeah, C3 and a 122.
Yeah.
And
the crew were very happy when I got rid of the because it was so heavy, So we've got one of these dual manual crawl organ, and it worked perfectly fine. We did exactly perfect job.
You can actually get away with some of the VST sounds are so.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got drawbar settings on the VSTs that you can really dial in something really pretty close.
Absolutely. I've used on Phil's album. I've used a couple of them.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed doing that.
Yeah. There's nothing, in my opinion. This is all just my opinion. There's nothing better than just a padded Hammond, turning the Leslie on, turning it off, and just padding through a chord progression. Side note. This is a total side note. Have you happened to seen this this Hammond player that's out of Australia named Lucky Doley?
No.
Lucky is how he says it, but it's LACHY DOLEY.
Okay.
And if you get a chance, check that guy out because he is just focused on bringing the essence of really solid Hammond playing back, kind of like a Deep Purple, but even more technical, like you said, how everything kind of stair steps. This guy will blow your mind with what he's doing on the Hammond, and he used a whammy clav. Have you seen that instrument?
I have seen it. Yeah. Incredible. That's good.
Yeah. It's nice to see him kind of tipping the hat to the way the instrument's supposed to be played.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, true. Absolutely.
But when you were playing with Gary, and I keep going back to the Over Hills and Far Away, but that type of really intricate doubled lines and stuff like that, what would a rehearsal working on? Hey, I got Gary comes to you and says, I got this melody. This is how it goes. Does he just rip that at you for full speed, or how would some of the learning processes go?
Well, yes, occasionally he'd come to me and say, well, could you do this? And then he'd blag it at you. And Gary had such a good memory, such a whatever, like he's standing like an idiot going, To be honest, those lines, things like that, were very much done in the studio.
Yeah.
And so what I would have to do is actually just learn. So, like I said, I used to sample the chieftain, what the chieftain did, from the master, and then some played. So playing those things. I mean, on certain things like Blood of Emeralds, there were things that I wrote. So they'd be different. I don't know what I was doing, but particularly Don Airy did a hell of a lot of much. He worked with Gary.
Repeat that again. It cut out.
Yeah, I was going to say no. Don Airy was responsible for quite a lot of this complicated stuff.
Okay.
That Gary did when he was doing his sort of jazz rock,
gotcha,
fusion stuff, and whatever. Again, he wasn't going to get that from me. So when I went to Gary, I could offer other things. I could offer singing and the guitar playing, but I couldn't really offer that to him. It's not what I do. It's not. I'm not a technical. I'm not a technical guitarist.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. You were throwing down on that.
No, I mean really, there are people that do all that stuff much, much better than I do. So I don't want to be X, Y, and Z.
You stayed in you stayed in your lane and did you?
Yeah. To be honest, the only instrument I had virtuosity, clarinet. So that's about the only thing that I can say I actually play well.
Yeah.
But the rest of it, I play to what I can do.
And I'm just going to keep talking about this.
Oh, that's
one of the things also. So, as a kid, I had cassettes, and this was, I had VHS and I had cassettes, and I would listen to, Victim to the Future album, and there, I was like, I would always hear the vocals, and I was like, damn, is that this? I always thought for the longest time that it was just Gary. You guys had such a similar timbre and attack the way you sang that it almost, you couldn't tell where he handed it off and you picked it up.
Yeah, we did. It did work really well. I mean, on recording wise, I think I tended to do some harmonies on some of the records. Then we had Glenn Hughes for cover, so I didn't do Rams around. I did all the ones. I mean, it was because that was very piecemeal album done.
Yeah,
Run for Cover was very done in very stages. But the final albums, I mean, Gary got more confident about the sing through that time. He really did, So, but no, it did work. I mean, if you were standing at the back of the hall, you probably would think sometimes it was just Gary or Ibsen. We were different apart, And I can tend to adapt my voice when I sing with Phil to make it sound so it doesn't sound like me. If you know what I mean.
Sure.
It just seems to happen that you'll sound like Phil harmonising with Phil, Gary, me harmonising with Gary's harmonising with Gary.
Yeah.
And that's just something that I do. Perhaps I'm not even aware of it at the time. I noticed it.
Yeah.
You adapt.
You're a vocal chameleon.
Oh, but the funny thing is, what I won't do is sing on my own. So people said years about doing my own album, but I don't like the sound of my own voice. Wow. And so I'm quite happy doing multi-layered harmonies, but when I actually have to listen to my own voice, I'm not so keen. Yeah. So it's very strange. It's a really strange thing I have. I don't know if it's some syndrome.
Yeah.
But I don't like hearing my own voice.
But one of the songs that really kind of points out what I'm talking about of how similar you guys would attack a song, "Rockin' Every Night."
Yeah.
Keep on rocking.
Yeah.
You sang 90% of that track on that live track.
Yeah. I don't know why. To be honest, I don't know how that all happened.
He needed a break.
He probably needed a break. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Because before me, he did have John Sloman. And then he had, with G-Force, he had another singer. So I think it wasn't always that Gary did the singing. I think Gary was quite happy to offload the singing because he was all really about the guitar. That was his thing. Anything that got in the way of the guitar in any shape or form, be it a drummer speeding up, be it a guitarist out of tune or whatever, he was terrible. It was all about the guitar.
Sure.
Right? All about.
Well, it was apparent he was not afraid to play the hell out of that guitar.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. And, good on him. Good on him. It was, I came to realise it much, much later on, only in recent years, that the reason why he got so angry with drummers or got so fed up with the other was all to do with something getting in the way of him sitting over his guitar, sitting over things. I don't think I'm wrong. I think I've really come to realise it over the years. So, so therefore, if I could help out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, having you as that utility guy, I'm sure he's like, Neil's got me covered over here. Can we talk about Bob Daisley a bit? Now, this was before he went to work with Ozzy, correct?
No, Bob had been working with Ozzy. In fact, it was bizarre because Ozzy, I think he joined Ozzy's band about 1980. Okay. So we're the original Blizzard of Oz. And gotcha. What was very strange was that when they were rehearsing UFO, I just joined UFO. Yeah. And Bob was saying to me, "Don't join them, mate. Come along with us." And basically saying, try out the keyboards with us, and I just joined UFO. Right. So, I just remember Bob and I having that conversation. So Bob had started with Ozzy. Yeah. And then was with him for a while. Then he kept going, occasionally going back, but mainly writing lyrics. I think. Okay. But we had Bob for a lot of the time. Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic player. Yeah. The fretless bass solo in I believe Empty Rooms. Yeah. Was brilliant on that. Just. I mean, Empty Rooms. Let's just talk about Empty Rooms because we're going there. We're going. It's that song. I mean, there were several songs in Gary's and y'all's. I'm going southern there, and in y'all. Oh, you're going very southern. Yeah. In y'all's repertoire, that blew me away. I mean, there were some that were just, your guys' versions of Shapes of Things. Yeah. The live breakdown. Yes. The live breakdown is unreal. I mean, what you guys did live, were those worked out? Obviously, those were worked out in rehearsals, or were those worked out, hey, we did it once live on stage, keep that, let's keep that? I think it was a question of having a cue. You know what I mean? So I think it was always going to be the case. Yeah. And Gary would break down and Gary knew, and then we'd build it up. Yeah. It's a bit like Bruising Waters. You never actually, and the loner as well. The loner could go on for 20 minutes, It depended on how he was feeling. Sure. And what he was really, really into his playing. So, I think they were things that were sort of worked out, but there was a time when there was always a cue, we've had anything on this. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of times it seemed like there was a melody line I like to call them turn signals. Whether a drummer does a fill, whether I do a melody line that's saying, "Hey guys, here we go," and then there's always these things. Those things, yes, absolutely. Those things where you're looking at the slight nod of a head. I love that stuff live. Yeah, no, Gary. I think Gary would very much. With Gary, it was always a melody coming. Yeah, we have that. We had that with UFO with. Bottom, so like Vinny will just going, poking. So we get the long solo, which sometimes can be very long. Sure. And then other times, and again, it's just a little cue that you. But I timed Gary one night on the loner, which was the encore, and it was 22 minutes long. Wow. Do you have it? Do you have that one on tape? I don't. There is a version on the Stockholm. Okay. 1987 Stockholm. 87, yeah. And again, it's all big. Oh no, it's going to finish now. Then it stops and then back down again. Yeah. And there's only so many times you can play 4 chords if you're a keyboard player. You can't have a dream. So but it was all for Gary. It was all what Gary had. Yeah. Right. On the Emerald Isle, I believe it's the Emerald Isles one in Shapes of Things. Yeah. It goes into that breakdown.
And I don't know if we were on the air when we discussed the red jumpsuit.
The red jumpsuit.
I believe you had some Chucks on. You had some Converse Chuck shoes.
Yeah, probably.
And I don't think your outfit was quite as flamboyant, but it was there.
It was, yeah. They were specially made for us. I find that hard to believe now, but they were specially made for the video.
Yeah.
To do the video, and I've got this white thing like netting.
Yeah.
Like and all that sort of thing, But I don't know whatever happened to that. I've no idea whatever became. It's funny, all these things through the years. I keep a lot of things. In fact, this afternoon I wanted to try and get rid of some of this memorabilia that I've carried around 45 years. Yeah. And I was looking at old UFO itineraries. Yeah. But certain things have just gone, and I don't know where those outfits went. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But probably best that they went.
Yeah. The other thing you had was you had some brilliant hair. It was some tall hair. You had to
teased and background alike. Yes.
Yeah, but in shapes of things, I digress there. I apologize. In shapes of thing, the breakdown happens, and Gary goes sprinting across the stage and starts climbing up on top. He goes up, and I think that's when he starts into that the delayed solo. Another thing, I never saw him turning on and off his delay on his guitar. Was that done? Was that done in post? Was that done off stage?
Ooh, now you're asking me things now. I don't. He just had delays. He had delays.
Big.
Might have been added because we did. Obviously, we did a mix.
Yeah.
And whatever. So maybe it was added. He did use a lot.
Yeah,
he did. He always did. So perhaps it was just a bit more controlled on the or whatever. No, I don't know. But, no, that was bits of that were sort of slightly enhanced. Not a lot.
Yeah. I tell you, as you can tell, I have studied this film.
Have you?
I know. I know this movie. Inside and out. And one of the songs. I actually got turned on to it, I think, off of the Victims of the Future record, but Murder in the Skies. You co-wrote that.
Yeah. The original idea was when I was working with Andy Parker and Paul Chapman after UFOs finished.
Yeah.
So we had some songs. We had 4 songs.
Yeah. And
one of them was the basic of Murder in the Skies that I wrote. And when we did this split up, Paul took something away with him, and I took that away with me. Yeah. And Empty Rooms, the beginning, Empty Rooms, the nucleus of that came from the time of UFO, but it never was released as a song. We never developed it all. That was where that came from. So all those, because it went on loosely. Stuff on Victor's that I contributed.
Yeah.
Had a bit of a hangover to when I was UFO.
Sure. I mean, and that's how a lot of ideas and stuff kind of come with you. But the content of Murder in the Skies was lyrically, had that been worked up or was that
No, Gary. No, it was Gary.
That sounded like a Gary. He's pissed off that the plane was shot down for no reason, and he wrote a song about it.
He did, yeah. He was very good with his lyrics. Actually,
yeah.
Very good. They're very good. A lot of them. Yeah, so no, I've never written a paper. So yeah, so I was sort of glad having him do it, and I was glad having Phil do it. No, I can't for the life of me.
Yeah. Yeah, he wasn't out afraid to write a bit politically tinged if he felt it.
No. Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the other. Is it fictions? I think it's about the Irish, the Irish problem.
Yeah. So that was one of that was going to be one of my questions here about. There were this was filmed in Ireland.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
And so. Those that may not remember, there was a Catholic versus Protestant type of religious war going on in Ireland, yeah?
Usually it's down to religion. So, yeah, no, it was, yes, it was, that for years this has gone on.
Yeah.
Gone on centuries, as far as I know. But, yeah, I was in Ireland with Gilbert O'Sullivan first, and we played in Belfast and Dublin and Limerick. Yeah. And I can remember going over the border from Belfast Dublin, and there being snipers in the undergrowth. It was pretty bad time to be. Ireland at that time was very bad in 1978, 1990.
Yeah,
and that's imagine 1890. It was just beginning to get a little bit better. I think there were still those police stations.
Sure.
The barbed wire, and certain areas had red, white, and blue curbstones. So they were like Protestant areas, So it was something that had, still carrying on.
Right.
And I'm sure I was in Ireland a few years ago examining, and the guy said, well, on the border of Southern Ireland and Northern Ireland, and the guy said to me, well, you don't see it, but it's still, there might be still some action.
Yeah.
So these things are.
Yeah, was there a concern for your, were you guys where I'm sure Gary was like, I'm just going home, but
he's about Belfast.
Yeah, so was there concerns? Were there safety concerns when you guys were over there doing that?
No, more so actually when I went with Gilbert O'Sullivan, the hotel, the most bombed hotel in Europe, called the Europa, and we used to go through a checkpoint in it, and I remember being quite nervy and in fact Ian Pace wouldn't go to Ireland. So we had Paul Thompson, who was from Rockton Music, playing the drums on that one.
Right.
And Ian he didn't go to Ireland, as I can remember. I got that wrong. In fact, it was very strange because when we filmed one of the Belfast show, it was I'd forgotten it was November the 5th, and suddenly we're standing waiting to go on, and I could hear all these explosions going on outside. And I was like, that's it, we've been bombed. And in fact, it was November the 5th, so it was bonfire. So there were rockets and like fireworks going off there right in the centre. So I just I'd forgotten for the second that it was bonfire.
Yeah. No, you said you're in the Canary Islands. How big is that island? Like compare it to something I might know, like Jamaica or Bermuda.
Oh, Jamaica might be the size of. It's. I'm trying to think how long it is. It's about 60 kilometres long, I think, maybe.
Okay.
It's only got a population of 150,000.
Oh, nice.
But it swells to do with the tourists. So, the tourists make up the rest of it.
Yeah.
But I live here, but I've never really, I've not explored the island. But you could go around the island about an hour, so it's not really an hour. It's, and some parts of it you can't go because it's all volcanic, So it's where they filmed Planet of the Apes.
Oh, okay, the original one.
So it's very desolate in parts.
Yeah,
it's very beautiful.
Is it like Bermuda? So in Bermuda, you drive around and there's all these cistern catches to catch rainwater because there's no real fresh water. Do they have fresh water sources there? We have desalinated water. Obviously being an island. So we have desalination plants. It doesn't rain here. In fact, I think when we first moved here, it hadn't rained for 150 days. Wow.
So and I think it's now we haven't had rain since March.
Wow.
April. So we don't. We get when we do get it, we get it. But
sure.
We get torrential downpours. But it's not quite like Bermuda in the fact it's not a tropical. Bermuda's tropical. we're much drier here. It's a much drier place because we're just near Africa.
Right.
So we're on the coast of Morocco. It's the nearest point to us.
Wow. Yeah, I've never had the opportunity to go to some place like Morocco, and I was just watching a documentary on their music there, and how it inspired, not just Jimmy Page and Robert Plant back in the day, but I mean a lot of artists have gone there because is there what would be the national music style of the Canary Islands where you're at? Is it like reggae or?
No. It's very strange. It's very Spanish.
Okay.
They use this little instrument called a timbre. So the national instrument of the Canary Islands tends to be this thing called, and it looks like a little banjo, and it's 4 strings. They come in different sizes, but the timbre has got a very strange sound to it. Nylon strings, and it's. So that really is the instrument. So it's slightly Spanish. It's got a little bit of South American because where I live, particularly, got a lot of Colombian, Ecuador, and there's pockets of Lanzarote in Ecuador and Colombia, like that. So it's more South American than anything else. Yeah, it's got a more South American. But the Canary Islands have been in various people, wars, of course. So we are a Spanish territory. Gotcha. It's a bit like the Channel Islands are the United Kingdom, that we're autonomous. We are.
Yeah, it's funny how just over periods of time, different, especially islands. It seems like they're taken over by this group runs them, and then this group runs them, and
Romans. You can anything to do with. I think it's often to do with what they can get from it. I mean, I always plan to live in Ibiza, but it gets a sort of winter, so we decided against it. But Ibiza has been close to Spain, has been Moors, Romans, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, but it's a hell of a lot of different.
Yeah. So. We've talked about all the stuff in the past, and we've talked about the stuff that you're working on coming up.
Yes.
Does UFO plan to come to the States? When can I see you here in the States?
Well, I'd love to say we would. I'm not sure whether we will.
Yeah.
But to be honest, we're very spread apart because 3 of the guys live in America, and I live down here, middle of nowhere, and Phil lives in. And because Phil had his heart attack last year, I don't know how keen he is to leave home. I don't know. Like I said, I can't really speak for him after.
Yeah.
And he said before UFO was finished, many years before, he didn't. It depends. I think it depends on how he feels. And we can only really do it with Phil. We couldn't do it without him. I mean, he is lifeblood of UFO. So I wouldn't want to.
Right.
Possible. So I would love us to come. I mean, I think everyone else would love to do it. Many Moore would love to do it. Andy would love to do it. And I would. But there is a point where you have to say after 3, 4 years, you have to say, you can't carry on. There comes a point. Andy, that's not going to be it anymore.
Yeah.
So, whether we didn't do anything to promote Phil's album. Then I don't know. But it's well worth. I can tell you, it's well worth promoting.
Yeah.
So I've got high hope.
Yeah, I obviously I would assume that it's going to be on all the streaming services and stuff like that.
I would imagine. Yeah.
So so once that comes out, we'll be able to check it out, and it's been a pleasure having you on.
Thank you.
I really enjoy going down memory lane of my youth and your youth. And just kind of remembering why we do all this. Like you were just saying, it's gotten to the point where even touring has gotten so cost ineffective that it becomes difficult. It becomes difficult to even, plan something
Yeah.
More,
Yeah, no, it didn't.
you know, something more than a one-off or a,
Yeah.
you know, a 3-night run in Vegas or somewhere, you know.
Not do that.
Yeah.
I think we talked about actually at the end of the last lot of gigs we were doing, we did talk about doing like a week in Vegas or a week in Chicago or a week in LA. The Whiskey, just
Yeah.
for like 3 nights, night off and then 2. I mean, I don't think it's impossible.
Yeah.
It's just really, it's just really whether you do it, and you wouldn't want to see things becoming right. And to be honest, and this is no reflection on Paul Rabin, but I think actually me going back into the band did a little bit of rejuvenation for us. It was like a little bit like sort of like a shot, sort of
shot in the arm.
That little shot in the arm. But it doesn't mean it was any better. It's just we sort of found a sort of mojo, and it just took a different personality. It didn't nothing to do with. It just found it.
Yeah, I think a lot. I think
it helps.
Yeah, a lot of times that's just, hey, we got the old crew back together, and we're just making music because we want to make music. There's a lot of energy.
Yeah, I mean, there is. I mean, my tenure with the band was very short, and my contribution to the band is nothing compared with Linker or Raymond. So. But me to just go and help them out was such a nice thing to be able to do, So and to feel involved, lovely, it really was, even in such sad circumstances.
Neil, I have clearly made a mistake because we had not listened to Empty Rooms or or Lead Clones. Let's listen to Lead Clones. This was always one of my favorite songs, because it felt a little bit like poking the eye of kind of what was going on at the time with the White Snakes and the Great Whites. And there were several bands that were trying to be the next Zeppelin. Was that kind of the idea behind that song?
I think that's perfect. Gary, this was Gary's beef. Kingdom Come, I think the other one.
Kingdom Come was,
yeah. I mean, goodness knows what he'd have made of Greta Van Fleet. That was what it was at the time. That's how he felt, And of course, it was written with Ozzy in mind.
Yeah.
So Ozzy's on there singing, Singing.
And how did that interact? How did that come together? Was it Bob Daisley? Did just Gary get on the phone?
Yeah, I mean, Sharon managed Gary.
Oh, that's right.
And there was always a connection, between Ozzy and Gary. And I think Ozzy did. I think he was meant to do something on the future, and then he did come to sing that song, which we wrote sort of with him in mind, really. So I got into terrible trouble unwitting doing another one of these podcasts, which because I said I was talking about the tour I did with UFO. And it somehow it got put into a bit of clickbait that I said that Ozzy was a terrible singer, and I don't think it was a terrible singer. It's just I think his voice is good for what he does. He's really good. But somehow it got angled into something that I hadn't said. For a bit of clickbait, So to put the record straight.
Yeah. No.
May not be my own personal preference. Yeah. But then I didn't say it was bad.
Ozzy absolutely fit that song absolutely perfectly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then Gary's voice, I had not realized up to that point how similar in range that their two voices worked so well together.
Yeah, they did. I think it works perfectly. It really, really does. So, and I like the end of it because the end of it's quite long and protracted. It's got the string thing again, which I had nothing to do with Gary. So I think that's fantastic. That ending.
Yeah. So those strings in the beginning, they're kind of throughout the song.
Mellotron sounds like it's a bit Kashmiri, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I don't think I actually played anything on that at all. I don't think I did anything on. Gary tended to use a lot of different musicians in the studio. So there's on that After the War, there's me on various things, but also he would get in. There's a guy called Andy Richards who worked with the Pet Shop Boys and worked closely with Peter Peters, whatever his name was, the producer. and so he used a lot of Fairlight. So there's a lot of Fairlight on there. Expensive. I used to say he used to bring in the expensive sound.
Yeah.
So he all the expensive that I didn't have. You know?
Yeah.
So I think I did the demo with Gary.
Well, you got writing credit on it, right?
Yeah. I can't remember which bit I wrote, but yeah, I'll say that. You know, yeah.
Right. Well, let's check this out. This is Lead Clones from Gary Moore and Neil Carter.
The time has come to talk about
Yeah, that is probably some of the most produced Gary Moore material that I've heard.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I think that listening, I was listening to them for a very long time, but Wild Frontier
Yep.
is quite more produced in a way than After the War, because After the War tends to little bit more natural. But
Yeah.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
But, I haven't listened to it.
Yeah, I hadn't listened to that track in quite a long time as well.
Yeah.
And I had not listened to it with like my in-ears in before. And that time I noticed there's some sitar in there.
Yes.
On the bridge section, there's an acoustic guitar or something like that going on, playing kind of a Zeppelin riff. And then there was sitar, and then there's the strings. And yeah, I had not heard Gary. Usually it was just in-your-face rock instrumentation.
I have to listen to it. It's probably been about 30 years since I've listened to it. I don't know. I have to.
Neil, how fast does 30 years go by?
Rather fast.
Yes.
I think even the last 10 years since Gary died, because Gary died in 2011, so we're now 12 coming up 13 years.
Yeah.
I don't know where that time. I think as you get older.
It just goes by so fast.
It does, yeah.
Have you seen on YouTube that last, apparently it was the last show that he did, and he was in kind of a smaller room, much like a Ronnie Scott's type of a venue.
I know what you mean. It was a pub.
Yeah, it was a pub.
And he just did a little playing.
And he was playing brilliantly. I mean, I think he just got better and better and better. I mean, I understand he went on and did the blues. Now, was he always interested, even back in those the big hair 80s days, was he always interested and infatuated with the blues?
No, it was something that I was never aware of.
Yeah.
I've got to be honest. And in fact, Gary could play every style on the planet. You know, he was proficient at doing anything because he was just, it was only on the After the War tour. He started to do these sort of jams at sound checks on him playing. And I sort of made my feeling quite clear that it wasn't something I would be doing, So I sort of used to saunter off and get on with my endings.
Yeah.
So I suppose by that point I was aware. And then Bob suggested to Gary that he do a blues album. Well, actually, his words were, "We do a blues album,"
right?
Meaning the band, as the band. And then Gary sort of ran with it and went off into it.
Yeah.
But I didn't really. I mean,
do you think that that was right around the era that Stevie Ray Vaughan popped, and there was a resurgence in the blues? It kind of felt like because I was a big Stevie Ray fan at the time, and then Gary came out. It seemed like came out with his record, Still Got the Blues, in that era, and then it just steamrolled. It
did. No, absolutely. Yeah. His most successful album. And so, and it was made on a budget. He didn't spend a lot of money.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think because I think producing. So I tended to view it at the time. We would do it and then go back to the rock stuff.
Come back to
so so I was I didn't do my life, but I was quite when I thought about it afterwards. I thought, well, it was natural because he couldn't really carry on. Gary did move between different styles.
Yeah.
So he moved from jazz rock into metal into rock into then into the blues or whatever. So I think it was Gary's. Wanted to carry on, involve.
Yeah, it was. I think it was also. I mean, those years of running around the stage and climbing up on speakers, which is kind of a young man's game.
And also because it had been done to death by that.
Yeah,
and I think he felt that the production was becoming more important than the music, and it never was really. Yeah. It wasn't like going to see some of the other bands that were around and are still around. For us, it wasn't really about a big production, whatever. We had stage thing, but it was really about the playing. Never thought it was about.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too was when he went into playing straight blues records. He brought a fire and ferocity, ferocious style of playing,
Ferociousness.
of just ferocious technical, that I don't think a lot of the blues players had kind of seen before, and it really took off. It just.
It did. No, it did. It was brilliant.
Did you ever get to play that? I think it's a 61, the red Strat. Did you ever get to play that one?
Again, it's a bit like Spinal Tap. Don't touch my guitar.
Yeah.
No, and it was a little bit. To be honest,
yeah.
He didn't like people touching his guitars.
Well, I would imagine.
And yet, he would let me play. He'd let me play the cheap ones. So I played some of the cheaper ones, but not actually. No, none of them were all the special. Yeah.
Well, I noticed from 84 he was using, I believe, the 61, the red 61, and then in Stockholm in 87, I think that I saw him with a Charvel red.
Yeah, Charvels,
with the locking tuners, because back in those days he was not afraid to dive bomb a Fender Stratocaster.
No.
You never know what you're going to get when you come back up.
What's going to come out when you come back up for air? The Charvels. In fact, we were using Hammers as well. I was using this as well. So, just a PVS. No, not PRS. PVS.
PRS.
Yeah. There were maybe PVS. So there were different guitars going through the years.
Oh yeah.
Ibanez. Well, we had a deal. We had a deal with Ibanez.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny on this VHS here. It says Gary Moore uses Ibanez guitars. You flip it over to the cover, and it's him with.
Gary.
Yeah,
I know, that's quite funny actually. Yeah.
Gary.
No, I had a cupboard full of Ibanez guitars that they just gave me. When we went to Japan, they used to just give us loads of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I went from that to having none at all.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're still doing it. I'm glad to have this conversation with you and
pleasure. Yeah.
And like I said, when you have a date for the release of this project that you're doing now, if you shoot it over to me, I'd love to take a listen to it and
no, definitely.
And come back on and talk about it.
Yeah, actually, I'd love to do that. Actually, because it's something I feel quite sort of guessed about. So we get the chance for sure.
Okay, well, excellent.
Yeah, lovely.
Neil Carter, the one and only. I appreciate you for coming on, and stay on the line, and I'll be right back with you.
Okay, thank you.
You're watching the Original Music Podcast.